You've done it again, haven't you? You've written too many words. The chapter, or your whole thesis, is a bit long. You're a few thousand over the word count, or maybe more. So how do you cut that down without losing any of that valuable knowledge and meaning? Keep watching, because in this video I'm going to share 10 things that you can try. If we've not met before, hi, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Yardley, and I help PhD students get out of their own way and finish their doctorates. And one of the things that most PhD students do to get in their own way is to produce these elaborate wordy drafts that need a damn good trim. Overwriting is really common. You find yourself making the same point over and over again, or bumbling around, taking ages to get to a point, or repeating or reinforcing something just in case your examiner didn't read it the first time. But less is more, okay? You don't need to repeat yourself. You don't need to over-explain. You don't need to faff around with fancy filler words. Let's dig you out of this word count hole, starting with tip number 1. Eliminate redundancies. Redundancies occur when you express the same idea more than once or use unnecessary fluff. This often happens subconsciously when you're trying to emphasize a point. However, cutting out redundant phrases is one of the easiest things you can do to reduce your word count. For example, rather than writing, "The study is important and significant for the field," just write, "The study is significant for the field." Both important and significant convey the same meaning. By using just one, you reduce wordiness while maintaining clarity. Here's another example. Rather than writing, "The existing literature currently available on this topic provides a broad range of perspectives," you could write, "The literature on this topic provides a broad range of perspectives." In this case, existing and currently available are redundant because literature implies existing sources. Secondly, cut out filler words. Words like very, really, just, and actually often creep into academic writing, but rarely add any meaning to it. Filler words make sentences longer without contributing any substance, so cutting them out can be helpful for reducing your word count. For example, rather than writing, "This theory is really important in understanding the phenomenon," you could write, "This theory is important in understanding the phenomenon." Removing really makes the sentence more concise without changing its meaning. Another example, rather than writing, "The experiment was actually quite difficult to conduct," you could write, "The experiment was difficult to conduct." Filler words tend to weaken your writing rather than strengthen it. By removing them, you create a more authoritative, clear tone, and that makes you sound more confident. Thirdly, simplify your phrasing. Academic writing can sometimes get quite bloated with overly complex phrases. They might make you sound more formal, but they're just word soup. They're just fluff. Simplifying these phrases not only reduces your word count, it also improves the readability of your work, the accessibility of your work. And if that's something that matters to you, if that's something that's important, if you want people outside of academia to read your work and to use your work and to implement it, you've got to cut this stuff out. Here are some examples. Rather than writing, "Due to the fact that the experiment was delayed, the results were not obtained on time," you might write, "Because the experiment was delayed, the results were not obtained on time." The phrase "due to the fact that" is a common culprit in academic writing, but in most cases it can be replaced with "because." This simple change can save several words per sentence. Another example, rather than writing, "In order to test the hypothesis, the researcher designed an experiment," you could write, "To test the hypothesis, the researcher designed an experiment." Replacing "in order to" with just "to" saves words and keeps your writing clear and direct. Now, get ready to take a screenshot, because here are some other phrases to look out for in your writing to chop and swap. Number 4, use active voice. Know the difference between passive and active voice. Passive voice often requires more words than active voice, and it can make your writing feel vague and indirect. And while there are instances where passive voice is appropriate, switching to active voice where you can is going to be so helpful in trimming your word count. For example, rather than writing "The data were analysed by the researcher," you could write "The researcher analysed the data." This shift to active voice reduces the sentence's length and makes it clearer who is performing the action. Another example, Rather than writing, "It was found that the participants were more engaged in the second phase of the study," you could write, "The participants were more engaged in the second phase of the study." In this case, removing "it was found that" not only cuts out words, but also makes the sentence more direct and easier to read. Now, before we get on to tip 5, I want to hear from you in the comments. How far over the word count are you at the moment? Or how far over the word count have you been before? No shame here, let's get sharing about it. Have you got a rough limit of 20,000 for your literature review and it's currently sitting at 40? Is your whole thesis supposed to be about 80,000 words and you're coming out over 100? Or is the problem that you don't have enough words? Are you writing too concisely? Is there such a thing? Get typing in the comments and let's see what we're all dealing with. Number 5, combine sentences. Often there's a tendency to write multiple short sentences when one well-constructed single sentence would do. Combining sentences can help reduce your word count and it can help improve the overall flow of your writing. It helps it feel less staccato, less jumpy, less abrupt. Let's take a look at some examples. Rather than writing, "The researcher distributed surveys to 100 participants. The participants completed the surveys in 15 minutes." You could write, "The researcher distributed surveys to 100 participants who completed them in 15 minutes. By combining these two sentences, you cut out unnecessary repetition and you improve the readability. Another example. Rather than writing, "The theory was initially proposed in 1995. It has since been revised several times." You could write, "The theory, initially proposed in 1995, has since been revised several times." So combining sentences in this way is another really effective way of making your writing more concise without losing any of the necessary detail or meaning. Number 6, remove unnecessary descriptions. Whilst detailed descriptions are sometimes necessary in academic writing, overly descriptive sentences can bog down your writing. Be concise with your descriptions, especially if the additional information doesn't add anything to your argument. For example, rather than writing, "The study, which was conducted over a long period of time, showed significant changes in behaviour," you could write, "The long-term study showed significant changes in behaviour." Here, "which was conducted over a long period of time" is unnecessary, because long-term conveys the same meaning in fewer words. Another example. Rather than writing, "The participants, who were all between the ages of 18 and 24, were selected based on their educational background," you could write, "Participants aged 18 to 24 were selected based on their educational background." Reducing these excessive descriptions can streamline your writing without losing any of the important details. Number 7, review each paragraph. Doing a paragraph by paragraph review is an excellent way to trim your word count. As you go through each paragraph, ask yourself this question. Are there any sentences or ideas that are redundant or non-essential to the main argument? Challenge yourself to remove 1 or 2 sentences from each of the paragraphs that you've written. You'll often find that these sentences don't change the meaning of the paragraph, but cutting them improves your clarity and your brevity. Number 8, examples and quotes. Examples and quotes can be useful tools in academic writing, but they can also take up a lot of space. If you've included multiple examples or long quotes to illustrate a single point, see if you can remove one or shorten them while still conveying the same meaning. For example, rather than writing, "As Smith 2020 argues, the evidence for this phenomenon is overwhelming, and it has been documented across various studies, including research in the fields of psychology, sociology, and anthropology." You could write, "As Smith 2020 argues, the evidence for this phenomenon is overwhelming, and it has been documented across various studies." This revision removes unnecessary details without losing any of the meaning from that quote. Number 9, limit adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives and adverbs, they can be useful, but they often add unnecessary words to your writing. Limiting their use can make your writing much more concise and focused. For example, rather than writing, "The researcher carefully and meticulously reviewed the extensive and lengthy literature on the topic," you could write, "The researcher reviewed the literature on the topic." By removing carefully, meticulously, extensive, and lengthy, you retain the core meaning of the sentence whilst making it more concise. The action of reviewing literature implies that you've paid careful attention. You don't need to write that. and words like extensive and lengthy. They're often unnecessary unless they add something very specific to the argument. Number 10, tighten up the conclusion. Conclusions will often repeat information that's already been included in the main body. Rather than restating every key point in detail, focus on summarising your findings and the implications of them. For example, rather than writing, "In conclusion, this study has shown that the participants were highly engaged during the second phase of the experiment, which was due to the new methods employed by the researcher. The findings support the hypothesis that new methods increase engagement, and this has important implications for future research in the field." You could write, "In conclusion, this study found that new methods increase participant engagement, with implications for future research." The revised conclusion conveys the same message, but it is far more concise, allowing the reader to focus on your main findings. Appearing on the screen right now is another video you'll enjoy if you're writing up your research. It's about something that PhD students do all the time that stalls their progress. Hesitating to send drafts to their supervisor, taking ages to send drafts to their supervisor. They faff, they delay, they procrastinate. Just send the damn thing. I go into way more detail about that in the video, so if you recognise yourself in what I've just described there, go and check it out. I'll see you in there.